You know who we are.
This is Fred and John Talks.
Yeah.
We're doing boomers to zoomers. You and I are each boomers, and we decided let's just talk about Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and maybe contrast them down the road. There's actually Alpha in this century, which we may get to them. Yeah. But it's boomers to zoomers. So we have two boomers who are going to talk today about Gen Y, because I've already talked about Gen X and interviewed a young woman who is Gen X. So,
a very good interview, I might add.
Well, thank you. I hope YouTubers that you'll check it out and look for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're supposed to give us some enlightenment about Gen Y.
So Gen Y, starting off with some facts, also known as millennials, because they were their birth years generally encompass years 1981 to 1996.
Okay.
And the reason they're known as millennials is they were the first generation to come of age, at the turn of the new millennium, and all that implies: technology, changes in the workplace, and so on, so many things. So there are, in my research, 7 key characteristics of Gen Y people. 1, they are very tech savvy. They grew up with the internet and mobile technology. They're very comfortable and proficient. How many times, have you met somebody who just goes like it's easy as pie to navigate the internet?
Fast, very fast.
Yeah, very fast. Secondly, they tend to be purpose-driven, which I find interesting. They seek meaning and purpose in their work and personal lives. And, that reminds me of one of the most famous books on psychology in the 20th century was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. You familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
How is that related to Gen Y, do you think?
Well, that book kind of was a foreshadowing of this. It wasn't done on purpose. It just evolved. But they seek meaning in their lives, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, according to Viktor Frankl.
I remember actually reading something recently too, Fred, about Gen Y, that they like to be employed by purpose-driven companies.
Number 3 is they're collaborative. They tend to value teamwork. Number 4 is they embrace diversity and inclusion. How many times over the past however many years have we heard that term, diversity? Right?
You think when they were in their 20s then, into the new century, that they were more into DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion?
They are, and the research shows that part of the reason behind that is they put a great value on social justice compared to previous generations. Number 5 is their desire for flexibility, especially in the workplace. So it says they often seek flexible work arrangements, including remote work and flexible schedules. And of course, as we know, you fast forward a number of years, and the pandemic.
So they were able to maybe. So do you think they were maybe able to adapt easier with the pandemic, because they like to be independent or work?
That is exactly right. Very adaptable, flexibility in the workplace and personal life. Number 6, influence of shaping events. They were affected events like the Great Recession, 2007 to 2009, the September 11 attacks in 2001.
Oh, yes.
And the explosion of the internet and social media.
Oh, I can't imagine how much influence 9/11/01 has had.
And as a psychologist, what I am blown away by is all of these factors falling on their generation, one after another, starting with the terrorist attacks
Yeah.
on the Twin Towers, the Great Recession, and the explosion of the internet. Yeah, that's a lot of psychic material.
It affected them emotionally. Some of them lost fathers, mothers, brothers, family members, and the trauma the nation was going through. And then there was the economic impact from the recession.
That is correct again. And that leads to the last one. You said it, economics. Financial habits. They may face unique financial challenges due to lower starting wages and student debt, leading to delayed major purchases like homes and families. It's not hard to imagine politicians talking about the forgiveness of student debt because they got buried under it.
Oh, that's a good. I like that point, Fred. Yeah, I like that.
So, if I may interrupt, some of these points that you pointed out, Fred, this is, by the way, this is Sohail from the background.
The cameraman.
I think the ubiquity of the internet, of being online, played a big role in this generation's lives into every point that you've mentioned. For example, when they say, when you say that they were diverse, they valued diversity, they still do, I know. It is because they were exposed to so many other cultures, to other countries, perhaps online, and perhaps by being attracted to go to other countries from what they saw online. So I think that's a good thing. That's
Access, that tremendous access.
Yeah, tremendous access to almost everything in the world, right?
You hit on a interesting point because in my research, there was a phrase that said this generation started to question American exceptionalism.
Correct. And they're still questioning it.
Yeah.
They're still questioning
Still questioning, yeah.
But they got it started.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Kudos.
very good point on your part.
Right.
I did a Google search to compare and contrast GenY with GenX. Now GenX, you just did the video with Catherine, but let me take you through 5 key differences between X and Y and 2 things they have in common. Key differences: technology. Gen X was the first to experience personal computers, but Gen Y is digitally native. What an interesting term. Native, what does that mean? Birth.
They grew up with it.
They were born into
It
it.
was almost like their genetics.
You delivered over 17,000 babies. They were born and they grew up with the internet and social media. You and I, we look back on our childhood, there was no such thing even as a cell phone.
This is why, as boomers, we always say, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." Well, wait till our grandson gets here, and we'll ask him.
Yes, that is absolutely. And like what we used to say in the past, that this child was born with a silver spoon in their mouth, right?
Yeah.
Now it's appropriate to say, oh, this child was born with an iPhone in his hand, right?
And an AirPod,
And AirPods.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
One of the saddest comic strip I've seen in recent years. It's a picture of a playground, and there's a sign saying, "Caution, children at play." But guess what it depicts? All of the children, nobody's playing, everyone's on some kind of device, mostly phones, some tablets. Nobody's playing. Caution, children playing, but they're all on the iPhone. That was so sad.
So you must be quiet.
That is probably the downside of this whole thing, because I've worked in IT area, and I see programmers and people who deal with it just sitting in the corner, just staring only on their computers, busy coding away or whatever. They're not socializing even in the workplace, you know.
Yeah.
And that is the sad part of this thing.
very
I'm not
sad.
just saying that it's Generation Y. It
No.
could be anybody.
Right.
But that's what the advent of IT and the ubiquity of the programming and the information technology has done to a lot of young people.
Yeah.
It's connections, but not really in person. A lot
Right,
of
the connections are not there.
Yeah. And just
Even when they're sitting side to side next to each other, each one is focused in
They're in their own world.
they're in their own world. They're busy coding.
This is giving birth, or has given birth for years, to feelings of social isolation
Correct.
and the loneliness. It's just the opposite of what it's designed to do, social media and connectedness. But
Yeah.
young people are reporting higher rates of anxiety and isolation because they don't have in-person friendships. They have cyber friendships.
Yeah, and I think, but I think it's purposely designed that way with algorithms by the corporations who write these algorithms to keep you focused and glued to your screen in a certain way. Yes.
I think you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
and it just keeps expanding. And the more you get into it, the more you get focused on one thing or the other. The algorithm will feed you more of that same stuff.
Yes.
And
Keep
that
me-
and I think we are transcending generations. In with my comment, it's probably more relevant to later generations, but Gen Y as well.
So key differences, work-life balance. Gen X often prioritizes a clear separation between work and personal life, while Gen Y seeks work-life integration. Consumer behavior. Gen X tends to be brand loyal and maybe more skeptical of new brands, whereas Gen Y is less brand loyal and more willing to experiment. 4, workplace values. And let me just put out a reminder, we're talking about the key differences here.
Okay.
There's 5. Number 4 is Gen X is characterized by independence and resourcefulness, sometimes viewing work as simply a job to get done, while Gen Y is often described as more team-oriented. Interesting difference there.
Yeah, it is a big difference.
Yeah, and 5, historical context. Gen X witnessed the end of the Cold War and the rise of personal computing, while Gen Y experienced the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the ubiquitous, you just used this word,
Yep.
the ubiquitous internet, shaping their more liberal and socially conscious views.
It made me think when you were talking at one point about how my wife and I were dinner one evening, and this young couple came in. Let's just say, I'm pretty sure they were Y millennials. They come in and they're talking, holding hands. They sit down in a booth, Outback Steakhouse. They take out their phones and they don't talk to each other anymore, and they're on their phones the whole time, sitting across from each other at the table. The food comes, the phones are put down, and they eat. And there's a little bit of dialogue, but then the phones come back up while they're eating. It's like, really? You can't hold hands, you can't stare at one another, you can't say I love you, I'm glad we're still alive, etc. The phone is even interfering with the eating.
That's a sad commentary. Yeah, sad commentary. But
That's a different episode, totally.
yeah, it is, but it's an accurate depiction
Correct.
of people talking about feeling isolated. Okay, so there's 2 shared traits. I'm sure there's more, but this was what I researched. Interest in technology. Both generations, X and Y, have shown interest in new technologies, although the nature and extent of this interest differ based on their technological upbringing. Okay, both generations have a keen interest in technology. And secondly, and lastly, adaptability. Both Gen X and Y have demonstrated an ability to adapt to changing times, with Gen X being adaptable to economic shifts and Gen Y adapting to new technologies and trends. So it's a fascinating thing to study, and the irony of it is, we're sitting here talking about some of the downsides of the internet, but I got all this material from the internet, so it has a good side.
It educated you.
It's an education,
But don't you think, Fred, that the human being is by nature adaptable and a survivor? And so when something comes along that becomes so important to be able to exist, such as the internet and phones, and being able to utilize a phone to manage your bank account, to manage your finances, we tend to adapt. The majority of us will adapt and go with that flow.
Human beings, I think in general, it's safe to say there's a lot of resiliency and adaptability.
Yeah.
One exception to that comes from my parents' generation who lived through the Depression. Afterward, they didn't trust banks. And so we have the saying, oh yeah, grandma kept her life savings under the bed mattress. So they didn't adapt. They were frightened by their experience, you know. That's a story that sticks out in my mind.
Actually, I've seen some boomers still insisting at the bank that they write a check. They will not do an electronic.
There you go.
Are you making fun of me?
And they fumble at the ATM.
Yes.
So
Yes.
poor things. I feel sad for them, and I feel not sad, but I want to walk up and say, "Can I help you with it?"
Yeah.
But well, we're talking about the newer generations now. The world
Yep.
moves on, and the old world has to step back and let the new ones
Make
come
way
up,
for the new.
make way for the new, and be graceful about it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's hope we can do that as boomers.
Let us hope.
I'll say one thing to wrap up that I think is important to me. That is a curse on the digital internet activity world. Is the word is passwords.
Oh.
You always forget your passwords. You never have your passwords, and so you can't do a thing. You may have this. You may have your phone, but if you ain't got your password, you're sunk.
Well, now you get password managers to manage your passwords.
What is that?
Password managers will manage your password. They'll remember your passwords. And in the event that you need a password somewhere and forgotten, they'll pop up and they'll fill in your password for them. So you don't have to remember your password.
This is an app?
Yeah, you get lots of apps in the market that will do that.
Why don't I know about this? Why haven't you educated me about this?
Yeah, I will educate you offline.
Me too. I have a notebook. I keep all my
No, you don't
passwords.
have to.
And sometimes I plug the app password in and it says, you know, this is not right.
Yeah, I know you have a whole notebook separated just for your password.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone where you keep it though.
I won't.
That would be handy for you, Fred, because then you wouldn't have to leave the grocery store, drive home to find out what your password is, and then go back.
This
Yeah.
is true.
Or carry your big password book with you all the
Yeah,
time.
right. Yeah, carry my notebook.
Yeah, and while other customers are waiting, Fred is searching for his password in his book. Well, with that note,
That's a wrap.